They didn't just fire me, they humiliated me. That morning, the conference room smelled like polished glass and deceit. Everyone from my department was there, eyes wide, whispers spreading like wildfire. I thought it was a meeting about the quarterly performance. I was wrong. When the CEO walked in with that smirk, I knew something was off. His voice cut through the air like a blade. We've reviewed your work, and we've decided to terminate your contract, effective immediately. The room froze. My body went cold. Every gaze turned toward me, some in shock, others relieved it wasn't them. And as I stood there, trying to breathe, he smiled. You're free to collect your things. Security will escort you out. Laughter. From the corner of the room. It came from her, the HR director, Amanda. She whispered something to the CFO, and they both chuckled. That moment burned into me like fire under skin. I didn't speak. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at them, memorizing every face, every grin, every sneer. Because I knew, deep down, this wasn't the end. That day, I walked out with a box in my hands, my nameplate, a few documents, and the silence of betrayal echoing behind me. But they didn't know one thing. I was the one who built the financial control system they were using. And I was the one who knew where every digital bone was buried. 3 years. 3 years I had spent building their empire's foundation, while they smiled, shook hands, and took credit for my work. Now they'd stripped me of everything, in front of everyone. I remember standing in the elevator, my reflection staring back at me, hollow eyes, clenched jaw. You'll regret this, I whispered. Not to them, to myself. Because from that moment on, my mission had begun. The first night was sleepless. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from coworkers, sympathy texts, and a few warnings. They're making you the scapegoat, one read. Audit coming soon. They're blaming you for the missing funds. Missing funds? That was new. I opened my old backups, my encrypted drives, files I had kept as insurance, not out of malice, but out of survival instinct. And there it was. Dozens of irregular transfers. Not by me, by them, the CFO, Amanda, even the CEO, all of them feeding off the company's profits like vultures, covering their tracks under fake vendor accounts. My pulse raced. They had fired me to bury the trail, but they didn't expect I'd still have the access codes. That night, the glow of my screen painted my face blue as I pieced together the puzzle. Each document, each transaction, it all pointed to one truth. I wasn't the culprit. I was the cover-up. By dawn, I had everything. Screenshots, timestamps, IP logs. Enough to burn their empire to the ground. But revenge needed precision, not rage. I reached out to someone I never thought I'd need. The chairwoman of the board. A woman the CEO thought he could manipulate. I knew her from an old project. Back when she respected my integrity more than her own executives. When she picked up my call, her voice was cautious. I heard what happened to you. You shouldn't contact anyone from the company. I'm not here to complain, I said quietly. I'm here to show you why you need to look closer at your team. Silence. Then the faint sound of her chair creaking. You have evidence? I sent the first file, the second, then the third, and I waited. The minutes stretched like hours. Then finally, her voice returned, colder, sharper. Meet me tomorrow. 9 a.m. Don't bring anyone. Don't tell anyone. And just like that, the game had changed. I looked at the building from my apartment window that night. The same building that had thrown me out like trash. Tomorrow I wouldn't walk in as an employee. I'd walk in as their reckoning. But little did I know. One of them already knew I was coming. The next morning, the air in the boardroom felt thick, like it had absorbed too many secrets. The chairwoman sat at the head of the table, calm, unreadable. I slid the folder across to her. No introductions. No pleasantries. Just evidence. She opened the first page, and the color drained from her face. Transactions, transfers, fake vendors, all of it leading straight to the CFO, Amanda, and the CEO. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. How did you get this? I built the system, I said quietly. I never stopped watching. She studied me for a long moment, then closed the file. You realize this is enough to bring the company down. Only the corrupt part, I said. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she leaned forward. Be here tomorrow. 9 a.m. emergency board session. You'll tell them what you told me. That night I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed once. An unknown number. One sentence. Stop digging. You don't know who you're dealing with. But I did know, and they were about to learn who they were dealing with too. The board meeting began like any other. The long table gleamed under the lights. The CEO strutted in last, pretending to own the room. The chairwoman's expression didn't change. She simply placed the folder in front of her and said, "We've received evidence of internal fraud." The air shifted. The CFO's pen froze mid-tap. Amanda's smile faltered. I watched as denial crept into their eyes like smoke filling a glass. The CEO laughed. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Whoever brought this forward has no idea how accounting works." Then I spoke, calm, steady. "Actually, I do. I designed it." He turned toward me, the same smirk he'd worn when he fired me. But this time, his eyes were harder to read. I opened my laptop, projected the screen on the wall, and showed the money trail, every hidden transaction, every falsified vendor. Gasps filled the room as I traced their fingerprints through digital ink. The chairwoman didn't blink. "Explain this," she said to the CEO. He didn't. He couldn't. The CFO stammered something about system errors. Amanda blamed legacy data, but their voices trembled, cracks forming where arrogance used to be. Then one of the junior auditors spoke up. "I tried flagging these months ago," he said. "My supervisor told me to delete the report." That was it. The silence that followed wasn't just heavy, it was damning. The chairwoman turned to legal counsel. "Freeze all internal accounts. Independent audit starts today." The CEO shot me a glare that could have burned through glass. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "Already did," I said. When the meeting ended, the tension followed me like a shadow. I made it halfway to the elevator when my phone buzzed again. No name, just a video file. It was grainy security footage from the day I was fired. In it, someone slid an envelope under the CEO's door minutes before my termination. The timestamp matched the CFO's midnight login. The envelope bore the company seal. A chill ran down my spine. Someone had planted something. Maybe to set him up, maybe to protect themselves. I wasn't sure which was worse. Suddenly, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about something deeper, a hidden layer that none of them had spoken of. I'd thought I was pulling their strings, but now I could feel another hand pulling mine. That night, I encrypted every file and sent a copy to the chairwoman and another to an external journalist I trusted. If I disappeared, the world would know. Then came the message that stopped my heartbeat. 3 words whispered from an unknown voice note. "They're on to you." I stood by the window, the city lights flickering like warnings. The game had shifted again. I had cornered them, but someone else was closing in. Faster, quieter, and far more dangerous. I thought I was hunting them, but maybe I was just the bait. The morning after the message, I woke to the sound of rain. Cold, steady, relentless. Like the city itself was warning me to stay quiet. But it was too late for silence. By the time I reached headquarters, security had tightened. Guards who once nodded at me now avoided eye contact. I could feel it. My name had changed from employee to problem. The board's external audit had already begun. A team of forensic accountants was inside, going through files I once created. I stood in the hallway, watching as the CEO walked past them. His face pale but composed, like a man balancing on a blade. He saw me. He smiled. But it wasn't confidence this time. It was calculation. "Enjoying your victory lap?" he asked quietly, stepping closer. "You think the board trusts you now. They'll use you, then throw you away again." I held his stare. "You're shaking!" His smile vanished. "Watch your back, kid." He turned and walked off, leaving a scent of expensive cologne and panic. Inside the boardroom, the chairwoman briefed the team. Her voice was firm. Every account, every invoice, every trace. No exceptions. Her eyes flicked to me. "You'll assist them. You know the system better than anyone." It should have felt like justice. Instead, it felt like standing over a minefield I'd built myself. The day stretched into hours of scanning data, cross-checking entries, and explaining loopholes. By evening, the audit had already confirmed 6 irregularities, each one linked to a fake vendor account that funneled money into offshore transfers. But then one of the auditors frowned. "This one's strange," he said. "The login used for these transfers. It's yours." The room went silent. I leaned closer. The screen glowed with a timestamp from 2 weeks before my firing, and an access ID that matched mine. Except I'd never logged in that day. My pulse quickened. Someone had used my credentials after I was locked out. A digital frame job. planted to make me the scapegoat in case this ever surfaced. The chairwoman's eyes narrowed. "Can you prove it wasn't you?" I nodded slowly. "If they used my account, they left fingerprints. No one covers every trace." Hours later, I was alone in the dark office, sifting through logs. Every click echoed like a heartbeat. Then I saw it. A session entry from a terminal that wasn't in the main office. It was logged from Amanda's department. The time matched her late-night inventory check she'd bragged about during a meeting weeks before. I had her, but before I could save the file, my screen flickered, then went black. System override. Remote access detected. My hands froze over the keyboard. Someone was watching me, in real time. I pulled the plug, yanked the drive, and shoved it into my pocket. My reflection in the monitor was pale, hollow-eyed. The building suddenly felt too quiet. When I stepped into the hallway, the lights were dimmed. A janitor's cart stood abandoned. Then I heard footsteps, measured, slow, getting closer. "Working late again?" Amanda's voice drifted through the dark. Her smile gleamed in the faint light. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" She stepped closer, heels tapping like a countdown. "You think you're the hero in this story, but you don't understand. We were never after you. You were the cover, the disposable genius who left just enough trail for us to walk clean." Her voice softened to a whisper. "Now you're becoming a problem, and problems get erased." I didn't answer. I just stared at her, calm, silent, and let her think she'd won. Because in my pocket, the portable drive was still warm. The file had copied just before the screen went dark. "You should go home," she said, her voice dripping false concern. "You've done enough damage." I nodded, turned, and walked away. That night I went to an old friend, Marcus, an IT specialist I'd once helped during a breach crisis. He owed me. I handed him the drive. "Recover everything," I said, "and trace who accessed it last." He looked at me like I'd just handed him a live grenade. "You're playing a dangerous game, man." "I'm not playing," I said. "They are." While Marcus worked, I sat in silence, staring at the storm outside. Lightning flashed, illuminating the city like brief moments of truth. In between those flashes, I could see my own reflection, someone I barely recognized. When Marcus returned, his face was pale. "You were right," he said. "Amanda's login. But there's more. The transfer trail leads to a private investment firm. Guess who's listed as co-owner?" I didn't need to guess. "The CEO." Marcus hesitated. "But that's not the worst part. The system that deleted your file, it wasn't triggered from her office. It came from the chairwoman's account." For a moment, everything stopped. Air, thought, sound. The chairwoman? The one who'd promised to expose them? I felt the ground shift under me. Either she was protecting herself, or she was protecting something much bigger. The rain outside turned heavier, rattling the windows like the world itself wanted me to wake up. Someone wasn't just covering fraud anymore. Someone was rewriting the story. For hours, I sat in Marcus's dim apartment, the city lights flickering through the rain-streaked window. His words kept echoing inside my head. The deletion came from the chairwoman's account. It didn't make sense. She had been the one who believed me, the one who wanted justice. Unless she was never after justice at all. Marcus slid the laptop toward me. "Whoever she's covering for, they've got deep access. This isn't just a cover-up. It's an erasure." The word sank into me like a nail. Erasure. That was exactly what they'd done to me. I left his apartment close to midnight. The streets were wet, reflecting the red glow of traffic lights like wounds in the asphalt. My phone buzzed. Another unknown message. "Walk away, or you'll vanish like the rest." The rest. There were others. By the time I got home, my mind was unraveling threads faster than I could hold them. What if the fraud wasn't just corporate greed? What if it was funding something else? Something the board didn't want exposed? Sleep didn't come. At dawn, I sat at my desk, surrounded by files, watching old email archives. That's when I found it. An internal memo buried inside a chain of HR updates. A project name I didn't recognize, Orion Fund. It was tagged under non-operational assets, a harmless label. But the accounts tied to it matched the offshore ones from the audit, and next to the signatories was her name, the chairwoman. My pulse quickened. Every move she made, calling the meeting, ordering the audit, even pretending to side with me, had been a distraction. She wasn't protecting the company from them. She was protecting herself from exposure. I stared at the memo, anger burning through me like acid. She had played me. She had used me to destroy her enemies, to clean her tracks using my revenge. By the time I walked into headquarters the next morning, the air was different. The CEO's office door was shut, blinds drawn. Amanda wasn't at her desk. The CFO's nameplate was gone. 3 seats, all empty. A victory that didn't feel like one. The board had moved swiftly. Publicly, they called it internal restructuring. Privately, they had cut the cancer, the ones the chairwoman wanted gone. I had delivered the blade. The chairwoman summoned me to her office that afternoon. When I stepped inside, she was standing by the window, looking down at the city like a queen overlooking her conquered kingdom. "You did well," she said. "The board's clean now." "Clean," I repeated. "You mean convenient?" Her smile barely flickered. "Be careful how you speak, Mr. Hale. You got your justice. You're reinstated, same salary, better title. Isn't that what you wanted?" The words hit me like a slap. She thought this was about money, about pride, but all I could see was that file, Orion Fund, sitting like a scar in the company's database. "I didn't do this for a title," I said. "I did it to expose the truth." Her expression hardened. "Then take my advice. Stop digging or you'll find something that won't let you sleep again." I left without a word. Her warning wasn't a threat. It was a confession. That night I called Marcus. "I need you to trace every transaction from the Orion Fund," I said. He hesitated. "You sure?" "Because whatever's behind this, it's not corporate." "I'm sure," I whispered. "They took everything from me once. I won't let them do it to anyone else." Hours passed before he replied. A single message appeared on my screen, and when I read it, my blood ran cold. Orion isn't a fund. It's a front, for board level. Payments to a private network tied to government contracts, and your name's on the next approval list. The world tilted. They were planning to use me, again, to sign off the next transfer. To keep the machine running clean while the dirt stayed buried. Lightning cracked across the skyline as the realization sank in. The board hadn't changed. They had simply replaced their faces, and I was standing in the middle, holding their signature pen. I walked to the window, watching the rain trail down the glass, and whispered to myself, if they want a pawn, they'll get one. But not the way they expect, because now I knew everyone's secrets, and I had one more folder they didn't know existed. It was called Final Meeting, and it wouldn't end with just resignations this time. By the time I reached the parking lot, the rain had stopped, but the storm hadn't. The city hummed differently now. My phone was a blur of alerts. News pings, market freezes, emergency meetings. The Orion scandal was everywhere within minutes. Names, amounts, dates, it was all out. And every single one traced back to her. Marcus called again. It's chaos in there. The board's in emergency session. Security's locking down files. You started a wildfire. Good, I said. Let them feel the heat. But beneath the thrill, something twisted in my chest. This wasn't the clean revenge I'd imagined. It was too big, too loud. And for the first time I realized, I'd lit a fuse I couldn't control. By evening, the building looked like a crime scene. Reporters swarmed outside the gates. The once pristine logo of the company I'd bled for was now the headline of every scandal feed. When Marcus arrived, he tossed a folder on the car seat. They're blaming you, saying you went rogue, that you leaked everything out of revenge for being fired. I almost laughed. They're not wrong. He shook his head. They've hired crisis management, but it's falling apart. The board's splitting. Some are turning on her to save themselves. I looked at the tower through the glass. Then the real reckoning's next. The next morning, I was summoned, not invited, to a board hearing. A sterile room with glass walls, faces tense, suits tighter than their morals. The chairwoman sat at the far end, calm again, her voice steady. Mr. Hale, do you admit to initiating the data leak known as the Orion disclosure? I leaned forward. I admit to signing the final approval file, yes. The same one your office prepared. One of the older board members shifted uncomfortably. Is that true? She didn't answer. Her silence said more than words ever could. I reached into my briefcase, slow, deliberate, and placed a small black drive on the table. Everything's on here. Every transaction, every falsified audit, every order signed under her authority. The air thickened. Even the sound of breathing felt heavy. The chairman of the audit committee looked at her, then at me. We'll need to verify this independently. You already have, I said quietly. It's in your inboxes. Phones began buzzing around the table. Notifications lighting up one by one. Copies of the files already spreading. Her calm cracked. Just for a second. Then she stood. This is manipulation. He's fabricating. But no one was listening. The chairman's voice cut through. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending investigation. Her face went pale. You can't. I can, he said. And I will. The guards moved toward her, slow, careful. She didn't fight. Just looked at me with eyes that no longer carried power, only memory. As she passed by, she whispered, You think you've won, but you've only exposed the surface. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The doors closed behind her with a sound that felt final. But deep down, I knew she was right. This wasn't the end. Because in that moment, when the board thanked me for my courage, when the cameras started flashing again, I realized the truth. The corruption didn't die with her. It was built into the walls, and walls don't fall quietly. For the first time in months, I woke up without an alarm. No calls, no threats. Just quiet. The company had collapsed overnight. The headlines called it the fall of Titan Corp, the board fired half its members. The chairwoman was under federal investigation, and the market value had evaporated in days. They said I was a whistleblower, a hero. But I didn't feel like one, because in that quiet, I realized what I had traded to bring them down. Friends, trust, stability, all gone. The empire I had known, the people I had trusted, even the rules I had believed in, reduced to ash and rumors. Marcus called mid-morning. You okay? I stared out the window, watching the streets glisten from the rain. I'm fine, I said, though I wasn't. Just tired. You took them down, he said. They're finished. Finished? I muttered. Or they're hiding, waiting. He didn't answer. He knew better than to argue. I walked to the building one last time. The glass towers reflected nothing but my own face, pale and tired. The lobby was empty, echoing with memories. Every corner held traces of ambition and greed, now gone or hidden. And then I saw her, the chairwoman standing under the dim glow of a streetlight, umbrella in hand, watching, waiting. You came, I said. I had to, she replied, her voice quiet but steady. To see the ruin you made. Ruin? I call it justice, I said. She smiled faintly, a mix of pride and sorrow. Justice and vengeance are the same coin. You spent months proving that. I studied her. She was calm, but I could see it. The tension, the fear, the knowledge that she was exposed. She had survived by playing everyone, and now she was watching the pieces fall. You think this ends here? She asked softly. I shook my head. I don't care anymore. Careful, she said. The board will rebuild. They'll come for you next. You've shown them the power of one man, and they will not forgive it. Her words lingered like smoke, and for the first time I wondered if she was right. Maybe this was only the beginning. She turned to leave, fading into the misty rain. Remember, she said over her shoulder, the fire you lit, it doesn't burn the same way twice. I stayed in the street watching her vanish. The storm had passed, but the city felt restless, alive with consequences. I felt a hollow victory. The headlines praised me. The market feared me. But in the mirror, I saw someone I barely recognized. The calm eyes, the sharp jaw, the quiet smirk, the reflection of someone who had walked too close to the flames. And somewhere, deep inside, I knew the truth. The real reckoning wasn't over, because power never dies. It only waits for the right hand to wield it. And the fire I carried was only getting started. The next morning, the city felt different. Even the air smelled heavier, as if it remembered what had happened overnight. Titan Corp's towers still loomed, but the glass reflected nothing but the chaos left behind. The board had convened emergency sessions, reports, investigations, resignations. The empire had fractured like cracked ice. But even in its collapse, something felt alive, dangerous, waiting. I walked into the building one last time. No cameras, no guards, just the echoes of power I had once served and now controlled in a different way. Every step reminded me of the fires I had started and the hands I had burned. At the boardroom, the chairwoman was waiting. Her calm, precise composure made my stomach tighten. She looked at me like someone measuring whether a predator had become prey. You've done a remarkable job, she said softly. But do you understand what you've unleashed? I didn't flinch. I understand perfectly. You built a world on secrets. I just gave them light. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of respect passing through the fear. Light can burn, even its source. I stepped closer. Then let it burn. I've seen the fire, felt it. I'm not afraid. Phones buzzed around the room. Reporters, alerts, notifications. The files I'd exposed were everywhere, the evidence undeniable. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Power didn't vanish when an empire fell. It shifted, and I had learned how to wield it without being crushed. She leaned back. You think this is over? I smiled faintly. No, but I've won the only way that matters. By holding the truth. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She had lost the game, but she had played it well enough to leave me wary. I could feel the shadows around her reach further than I could see. As I turned to leave, she whispered one final warning. Remember, every empire has its ghosts. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I had learned that the ghosts weren't just theirs. They were mine too. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to the storm that had passed and the one that would follow. I walked away, leaving the tower behind, carrying the last folder, final meeting, a reminder of the power of secrets and the reckoning they bring. And as the night swallowed the skyline, I whispered to myself, they thought they could bury the truth. They were wrong. The streets were quiet, but my mind wasn't. Every step forward was deliberate, measured. I had the files, the leverage, the clarity, and one final thought burned hotter than revenge. Justice wasn't given. Justice was taken, and in my hands it had teeth. This is Karma Unfolded, where every secret finds its reckoning. Don't forget to subscribe.